Hello, my name is Case for Synth and Software Magazine, and today we're talking Enrage. Enrage is the latest plugin from Boom Library, and it's really cool. And if you've been reading my review, then you're starting to get a gist of what it does, but you might also be thinking to yourself, oh my god, this sounds really complicated. And it's actually not. Enrage is actually quite intuitive to use, and I thought I'd make a quick video just to show you the basic workflow of Enrage and how easy it is to set up some really interesting effect. Alright, so here we are in Logic Pro, and I have a very simple arpeggiated sequence that I already programmed in using Logic's built-in retro synth on this circle of fifths preset, and I'm also using Logic's built-in arpeggiator to add some movement. Now the only other thing that's going on here is that I have put a little bit of automation into our track to control my cutoff frequency right here. So let's take a listen and get an idea of what the before sounds like. Alright, so let's open up Enrage and see how we can further enhance this arpeggiated sequence. Here we are in Enrage. This is just the basic initialization screen, so Enrage is not doing anything to the sound quite yet. We could go into the preset browser and find one of the many excellent presets that it comes built into the plugin, but for this video I thought that we would create something from scratch. So let's say that we want to add maybe a little bit of flange to our sound, and we can go into the modulation section right here and select flanger. And I'm just going to click and drag it into our rack. I'm going to put it into this first slot right here. So our sound is being affected by the flanger, but one of the things that makes flanging particularly interesting is when you have this kind of shifting frequency, right? This kind of nice motion that adds this interesting wash. And that's going to come from this frequency knob right here. So to animate it, I'm going to instance an LFO, okay? And I'm going to change it from sine to triangle. So now we have this ramp that goes up and goes down. And if I want this to control our frequency, all I have to do is click on these little four dots right here and drag them over to this black dot right here. And then I can click and drag up or down to select the effect of our LFO. And you can see that I can kind of select more or less. So I'm going to hit play. Let's take a listen at what's happening. Alright, that sounds way too crazy. And that's because the frequency is moving just way too fast, right? So we can slow this down. I'm just going to click on this rate minimum, and I'm just going to slow it down to maybe a more palatable, let's say 0.162 hertz. And you can kind of start to see just how intuitive and how exploratory this plugin is. So let's do something else with it. Maybe we want to add a panner to our sound so that we maybe like shifting from left to right. So I'm going to go into our imaging, and there is a panning. So I'm just going to click and drag this right below the flanger right here, okay? And once again, we want to animate the panning, but maybe what I want to do is I want to be able to animate it at a different speed than what this flanger is going to. So I'm going to create a new LFO right here, okay? And we're going to use a sine wave. Now this is going to go a little too fast, so I'm just going to slow it down once again. And I'm going to drag these four dots into our pan. And I'm just going to click and drag up so I can kind of set the range of the pan. But let's do something even more interesting with it. So because I built in an automation to our cutoff frequency, I want the panning to get faster the more we hit these kind of higher frequencies in our synth line, okay? Let me show you a little bit what I want to do. So what we have is a minimum rate here in this particular LFO, and we have a maximum rate, okay? So this is controlling our panning speed. And the way that we can shift between these two minimum and maximum rate is through this rate modulation. I'm going to hit play, and I'm just going to basically manually control this back and forth so you can kind of see what is happening, and maybe like this modulation is a little too fast. Let me just kind of slow it down a little bit. So I'm just going to hit play, And as I said, adjust this rate modulation manually so you can kind of hear a little bit what's going on. So we almost get like a tremolo effect because it's moving so fast and rapidly, which is really, really cool. But I want to be able to control this a little bit more interestingly, right? I want it to be musical. So let's say that we want to use some of the higher range frequency as my cutoff is being opened up more to adjust this rate modulation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to instance an envelope follower. So the envelope follower is analyzing our incoming audio and then giving us some values, translating like the amplitude into values. So what I can do now is I can go back to my LFO. I can actually click these little 4 dots from the envelope follow into the LFO, into the rate modulation, and adjust the taste. And I'm going to hit play and see what happens. So you can see something is happening, but we have a couple problems here. First of all, from our envelope follower, our amplitude is not high enough to really have much of an effect onto this rate modulator. So the first thing we can do is we can adjust the gain. So I'm just going to go quite a bit up, like around 23 dP. Okay, so now this envelope follower is maxing out our rate modulation, which is not really what we want because now it's being pegged all the way up at the faster speed. So we're getting like a lot of the tremolo effect, but not as much of the panning effect. So what I want to do next is I want to be able to kind of control some of the frequencies so that only the high-end frequencies are actually going to be affecting this LFO right here. So I'm just going to click on this headphone icon, and that's going to allow me to listen to how the incoming sound is being processed by this particular envelope follower. So let me show you what that means. I have like some filtering options here. So I'm going to hit play. So right now there is no filter, but I have a bandpass filter, I have a low pass filter, and a high pass filter. Now the high pass filter is really what I want to be using because I want to be able to only utilize the very, very top end of the frequency to control my modulation here of this LFO. So we're starting to get like this acceleration just in the louder parts, like, you know, where our cutoff frequency is being opened up a little bit wider. But it's a little frantic right now. So what I want to do is also I want to go in here and adjust maybe the release a little bit. So now it's a little bit smoother, and maybe I can also adjust some of the attack so that we have like smoother transients to control this LFO. So this is good, but we're getting into the faster rates a little bit too quick. So I'm just simply going to reduce the input here. I'm just going to drag this down a little bit. So now we have this nice and slow here. I'm just going to slow this down even more. And I'm going to maybe speed this up just a touch. Okay, so I'm going to hit play. And I want you to pay close attention to what's happening to this pan value right here. And you'll see that as our cutoff envelope is opening up more and more, the panning speed gets more and more frantic. So let's take a listen. Of course, this only scratches the surface of what Enrage can do, but hopefully this gives you an idea of just how easy and intuitive it is to use all of the different modulators to control different parameters that are built into Enrage. For Synth and Software Magazine, I am Case. Thank you for watching.